Namaste, and welcome to you all in this first virtual international conference organized by Scholars Association of Nepal. Today, we have again one exciting session that is panel discussion on language planning and policy. There is a burning need as well to discuss on language planning policy area, believing its importance, the most importance, we have decided to have this panel discussion, and for this we have invited our distinguished panelists of today's session. I would like to welcome them all, and let me introduce our first panelist, Dr. Labadev Awasthi. Let me introduce him. Born on 14 October 1959 in district of Baitari in the far western state of Nepal, Dr. Labadev Awasthi earned school leaving certificate from his home district in 1975. Dr. Awasthi gained a B.Ed degree in 1979 and an M.A. in Humanities and Social Sciences in English Literature in 1983 from Tribhuvan University, Kathmandu. He did an M.A. in Applied Linguistics and TESOL in 1989 from Leicester University, UK, and a PhD on exploring monolingual school practices in multilingual Nepal from the Danish University of Education, Denmark in 2004. Dr. Awasthi has served as a Director General of the Department of Education and Secretary to the Government of Nepal. At present, Dr. Awasthi is Language Commission in Nepal. Dr. Awasthi has taught in Tribhuvan University campuses and he is a visiting faculty of Kathmandu University. He has authored a number of books and articles on education and pedagogy, language policy, as well as multilingualism and multilingual education. Dr. Awasthi was decorated with Suprabal Janaseva Sri, Nepal Vidya Bhushan, and the Order of Gorkha Dakshin Bahu. I would like to welcome Dr. Awasthi in this forum. Our second panelist is a young guru, Dr. Prem Phak. Dr. Prem Phak pursued his PhD in second language studies from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, USA. Currently, he is an assistant professor of English education at the Central Department of Education, Tribhuvan University. His areas of interest include English in multilingual context, language policy and planning, youth engagement in language practices, critical pedagogy, language ideology, language and public space, and culturally sustaining pedagogies in qualitative research. Dr. Phak has a MA in TESOL from the Institute of Education, University College, London, UK, and M.Ed in English Education from Tribhuvan University, Nepal. His publication includes Engaged Learning Policy and Practices with Catherine A. Davis from Routledge. In addition, his publications have appeared in the journals such as Language Policy, Language in Society, Critical Inquiry in Language Studies, and Current Issues in Language Planning. I would like to welcome Dr. Phak in this forum. Similarly, we have our third panelist of this panel discussion, Mr. Pramod Saha. Pramod Saha is a PhD candidate and Killam scholar in the Department of Language and Literacy Education at the University of British Columbia, Canada. He has earned an M.Ed in English language teaching from Triveni University, Nepal, and an M.A. TESOL with applied linguistics from University of Central Lancashire, UK. His work is driven by core values of social justice indexes, for example, class and ethnicity, in English language education policies and practices in low and middle income polities, often Pyre Bourdieu's critical social theories. He has served as a strand coordinator for the advocacy, social justice, and community building strand of TESOL International Association, and currently leads the forum Teaching English and Teaching in Global Context as EMI South Asia Coordinator. I would like to welcome Mr. Pramod Saha in this forum. We have another panelist for this session. He's the young PhD scholar. He's the assistant professor of Far Western University at Tikapur Multiple Campus. His publications includes multilingualism, teaches multilingual awareness, early grade medium instruction, mother tongue-based multilingual education. His PhD area is mother tongue-based multilingual education, policies, practices, and possibilities. I would like to welcome Mr. Ganaraj Paudel in this forum. This panel discussion, we have the people from the different areas. One works in the one along with the policy, along with language practices. So without delay, let me request Mr. Ashok Raj Khati, principal of Birendra Sainik Avasi School, Tegari, to chair the session. Over to you, Mr. Khati.
Before we begin, we have some issues at present in the context of Nepal, because right now Constitution of Nepal officially transformed the country into a federal republic democratic nation, which delegate the authority of decision making in many educational issues to the local governments, that is municipalities and metropolitan cities composed of elected members. So this linguistic diversity in Nepal, with its 129 languages recorded by Language Commission, the issues of language use in education has been contested across academic and political forums as well. Therefore, this discussion, this panel talk will, I hope this will be very fruitful, and we have the participants from diverse background. The first of all, may I come to Pramod Saha sir?
Yeah, sure.
Pramod sir, namaskar.
Namaskar.
So the first question, what is language policy and planning? Why it is important? For whom it is important? Does it make any sense, any meaning, a relation with common people? I mean, language policy and planning, does it have any relation with common people? This is the first question. And the second, how language policy and planning matters to school teachers and university teachers. Why school teachers or university teachers should bother about it?
Okay, thank you for the question. I feel like bombarded with the questions. I don't know how would I be able to answer all these questions in a very short period of time. But anyway, it's a more kind of theoretical part that I needed to shed light on. Okay, so the first question, I guess, was what is language planning and policy? So the language planning and policy itself is a combine of two different theories or two interrelated aspects of LPP, that is language planning and language policy, right? So when we think of language planning, language policy, we always think of what languages are planned to become a part of the policy. Language policy, in a sense, is from a kind of traditional definition, is a text, is a document that entails what languages are to be given space across domains. For example, education, bureaucracy, courts, media, etc. So that is language policy from more traditional viewpoint. However, the scholars who are driven from postmodernist viewpoints, they believe that language policy is more a kind of discourse. So when we consider language policy as discourse, it talks more about language policy as a verb. Language policy is not necessarily only a noun, it's a verb, so it functions. It does act, it does provide lots of actions, that kind of influences our social, historical, cultural, backgrounds of the society we are living in. So, for me, language policy is both a text and a discourse. So, when we talk, I think I need to go back to the history as well, how the concept of language planning and policy emerged. So, I think the term language planning was first used in 1950s by Hagen when he termed language planning for more from a how do I put it, technical viewpoint. That means documenting languages, documenting the features of languages. However, that concept was problematized in 1980s mainly by Dale Hymes and the colleagues when they proposed language policy more from a sociological or sociocultural viewpoint, when they considered language policy more as functioning in relation to the social aspects, like the socio-historical, socio-cultural, socio-economic, aspects of our daily life or daily activities, and how they, make direct or indirect connections with with the process of legitimating particular languages in education or in other, aspects.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I mean, language policy and planning, why it is important for school teachers and university teacher, as well as does it have any meanings? Does it make any sense with the common people?
Okay, I will go first with the common people. I think when you say common people, you mean the general citizens who are not teachers and professors, right? The people from multiple, walks of life. Yes, I do think it makes relation to them. Particularly, when we plan particular languages, it makes direct influences on the life of general people. For example, the parents. I think we consider parents as general people. So, for example, when I tell about myself, like I was born and brought up in a Bajikai speaking community, right? So the language policy or nationalist language policy initiated by the government of Nepal, decades ago, had a direct, impacts on myself as a student, as well as my parents. Like my parents have never, they don't speak Nepali as their first language, right? But they were compelled to speak the language, right? They were compelled to speak the Nepali language because they needed to go to school, they needed to write application letters to different offices, right? So it's a more, the macro level language policy always influences the language ideology of general people. So it's a kind of like interrelated, what we call it, the network of dispositions. So one disposition has always, a link to another disposition. For example, the disposition of policymakers or dispositions at macro level policy making always has a concern or impact on the dispositions of local people or the people in the community. That's why, like, if you read the language policy texts, they always say that, the government of Nepal is promoting or seems to promote the English language, on the note that they say or they claim that parents believe that they need English, right? So they try to make a direct relation to the general people. They say or they make a claim that general people believe that English is needed. That's why the government is responding to their need. Although there is another, there's a political aspect of this, claim, which I'm very critical about. I always think it's not the people who are thinking they need English. It's a kind of the top-down, the belief system or the top-down ideology that is driving or that is influencing the ideology at the local level. So yes, there is a connection between that. Moving to teachers, of course, like university teachers or the school level teachers, they both are responsible or they have the responsibility to implement some sort of policies, right? So when they in the process of implementing a top-down policy, in Nepal we have top-down policies, we don't have like bottom-up policies. I think we are in the process but not very much in effect. So when these actors, when these teachers in the process of implementing the language policies, they have kind of agency to negotiate the language policy, to accommodate the language policy, right? So in a case when they are given the guidelines to implement the policy, for example, if they are given the guidelines, like they need to implement, they need to understand the guidelines, and they need to run their classes based on the guidelines. In case for example, what is happening in Nepal, like they are not given the guidelines, policy guidelines. They don't know how to implement the policy in their classrooms, right? So they tend to bring out their own autonomy, or more technically, they bring their own agency in negotiating the language. What language is more responsive to their students? What languages are more or what languages they are more familiar with. So all these things, I think, make a very, very strong connection between language policy and running as a theoretical background, or as a construct at the macro level, and the people in the micro level.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for your ideas. अब मैले म अवस्थी सरसँग आए. प्रमोद शाह सरले language policy and planning as a text and as a discourse को कुरा गर्नुभयो. त्यसैगरी सामान्य मानिसलाई, जनतालाई चाहिँ यो language policy planning ले गर्दा त्यो किन significant छ भन्ने कुरा गर्नुभयो. त्यसैगरी teachers as the implementer of the a kind of policy. Dr. Avasti, could you in the first round, could you briefly explain what Language Commission is currently working on? Avasti sir.
एकदम धेरै धन्यवाद छ यो अवसरको लागि. सबभन्दा पहिला चाहिँ अब प्रमोदजीले एकदमै महत्त्वपूर्ण कुरा उठाउनु भएको छ. जस्तो अब हाम्रो पोलिसीको सम्बन्ध भनेको राजनीतिसित पनि हुन्छ भन्ने हिसाबले उहाँको एउटा आफ्नो त्यो बुझाइ पनि हामीले जोड्नुपर्छ होला. किन त्यहाँ चाहिँ जो म नेपालीमै भन्छु, पछि अङ्ग्रेजीमै नहोला, जो हाम्रो साधारण किसिमको जनमानस छ, त्यो जनमानसको विचारको प्रतिनिधित्व गरेर राजनीतिक माध्यमबाट अभिव्यक्त भयो भने त्यो चाहिँ एउटा ढङ्गले नीति भयो. भने चाहिँ अब ल्याङ्ग्वेज पोलिसी इज एन इन्टेन्ट or is a collection of intents manifested through political processes. I think that would be a reasonable way to look at how we see the changes in policies and how policies are directly connected to the political engagement. So policies are not a kind of separate entities. They have been part of the political intents. Some ideologies certainly may be part of that process, but when we talk about how policies are created, policies are constructed, these policies are manifestations of the political will or political intents. And Language Commission, when we talk about the interrelations with federalization and new architecture in the political this process, in that whole chain of connection, we need to look at how Language Commission is situated and how Language Commission came into existence and what mandates are given to the Language Commission. So for the implementation of this federalization in Nepal, Language Commission appeared to be one of the crucial elements, crucial means of making languages part of that whole dynamism, how we empower language communities, how we give a space to minority groups, how voices are recognized, heard, and how policies are also not serving the purposes of those who are in majority, but they also need to be interlinked with the minority language communities. So in that sense, I think Pramodji's point was very crucial, that how the voices are again represented through Language Commission. So from that perspective, we are given four major tasks. Task one was how we ensure the status of language, how we give the function to different languages, what could be the role and function of one particular language. That could be a language in command or language in some kind of shadow, and how all the functions could be also articulated for languages in the country, languages outside the country. So one task we are given is how we define or interpret the functions of language in relation to the status of these language areas. And then the other part, we are also engaged with how we save languages, how we preserve languages, how we ensure that languages do not die in Nepal, and we do not have any kind of suppression, or we ensure that we are capable of protecting languages in terms of their digitization, documentation, recording, or even development functions such as vocabulary items, their grammar, their phonological areas. So in that sense, how we safeguard languages are also connected to Language Commission's this jurisdiction. The third one is acquisition planning part, how we ensure that languages are part of our learning processes, and languages also become tool to education. For example, so far languages are not directly connected to children's learning, education, and language is not seen to be interlinked so far. That's why the Constitution of Nepal has very clearly articulated that languages are intrinsically connected to education. Learning is inevitable, or learning becomes a part of that language connection. If languages are connected to education, learning is possible. If languages and our education systems are not interlinked, learning may not happen. So in that sense, I think we give a very special space to children's learning in view of how languages are integrated into the process of educational delivery system. The fourth one is also important, how we generate knowledge, how we learn from each other's experiences, how knowledge system can be seen as a kind of measure service structure to provide feedback to the government, to provide input to the other agencies such as university systems or all the scholars. And then apart from that, Language Commission has Language Commission Act. Language Commission Act has 7 other tasks that are connected to all the enabling functions of making languages a part of Nepal's delivery system. Or in order to implement the agenda of federalization, Language Commission has to play a part by recommending all the basic issues to the president in order to carry out the functions. If we talk about how languages are situated in the country, how we see the actual use in the different dimensions, including our society or education institutions. So all the gaps that we are witnessing in the country also become part of Language Commission's area of discussion, and based on the feedback, based on the inputs we receive from stakeholders, knowledge holders, or language communities, we provide inputs to the government for the implementation of this process. In that sense, I think Language Commission has initiated the process for bringing these issues to the knowledge of the government, but still implementation has been very weak. We have not yet been able to really bring about changes. Attitudes are serious problems. We are not yet quite success in changing our attitude, changing our behaviors. Still the problem is language is seen to be fully recognized in our policy documents, in the constitution, but we still face a huge problem in the actual delivery of the language functions at the federal level, state level, or local level. Local government particularly are still unaware of the benefit of language in education. We have been not yet fully prepared to make that happen. Thank you very much. I will pause here, then we can get into the next round.
In this connection, how do we link the diversity, diverse settlements in terms of ethnicity, culture, language, and religion? I mean, what is the relation of this diversity with language policy and planning?
Thank you, Ashokji. I think there are too many questions. I will just...
two questions.
But there are too many questions for me. So I will begin with the first question. So what are the theories and approaches in language planning and policy? I think my role here, based on your question, I guess is to give some insights on what are the theoretical perspectives on language policy and planning for researchers, not necessarily for policymakers and general people. So I guess in this audience, I guess we have some basic knowledge of language policy and planning. I think there are a lot going on in language policy and planning. It's very broad field of research. And talking about the theories, yeah, there are multiple theories, and starting from more neoclassical, talking about language policy as very normative texts. So for example, what government says, what constitution says, something like that. And another theory that looks at more language policy from more sociolinguistic perspective. So how language planning and policies are actually embedded in existing socio-political structures, inequalities, power relations among communities, and so on. So more like critical historical perspective, let's say historical structural perspective. So looking language policy and planning as part of historical structural process. And there is an increasing amount of literature in language policy and planning. I think I will be, I have my own presentation, maybe, I don't know when, May 2nd. So I'll be talking about all those things. So I will just be brief here. So talking about more, seeing language policy and planning from more socio-cultural perspective, which is more ethnographic in nature. Not necessarily seeing language from top down, but seeing language policy and planning from what happens at the bottom. As Pramodji already mentioned, I would add one more perspective on seeing language policy and planning, that is language policy as a practice. So what actually happens, because language planning and policy, for me and for the people who see language policy and planning from socio-cultural perspective, is any social phenomenon that involves linguistic transactions and that becomes kind of normative behavior later. So it's more ethnographic perspective, see language policy and planning as as in relation to how communities how communities negotiate, what are the tensions, what are the ideologies they bring, whose interests are served through language policy and planning, all those things. And language policy is not something that is just by prescribed by the governments and agencies. But language policy can be created from the bottom up. For example, schools can create language policies, and the families can create their own policy. For example, even in this virtual space, so we are using Nepali, sometimes we are using English, and this is how language policies are created. Even religious institutions can create their own language policies. If you go into classroom, even the teachers can create language policies. For example, in my class, I ask my students to use this language or that language. In my family, I ask my kids to use this language or that language. During dinner table, use this language. During lunch time, use this language. Bedtime stories, all these things involve linguistic transactions, and it becomes kind of like normative behavior. So this is more ethnographic and socio-cultural perspective. And there is ongoing, I will be presenting on May, I think 2 days later. There is ongoing literature on this transformative or engaged notion of language, engaged language policy. So in 2017, I and Kathy Davis published a book, and where we are advocating that language planning and policy studies and knowledge regarding language planning and policy should move forward, not necessarily unraveling countering hegemonic ideologies and beliefs, monolingual ideologies, but also moving towards how a researcher can engage different stakeholders towards transforming language policy and plannings that negatively impacts the life of people, basically with regard to linguistic diversity, as you have said. And that's why when you see things from bottom up, there are so many things coming up. So that's why, as I said, so more seeing language policy from engaged perspective involves more community engagement, teachers engagement, even sometimes students engagement, not necessarily looking at what government says actually, but looking at what languages or what kind of language practices actually make sense and impacts the life of people positively. So this is more engaged perspective. So it's also part of more socio-cultural or ethnographic approach to language policy, but just one step further and seeing the agencies and our role as a researcher to make impact in the lives of people. So it is directly connected to linguistic diversity, because the way we understand diversity is very, very monolingual sometimes, because we count the numbers of language, but these numbers of languages may not make sense when it comes to language practice in classroom. For example, in a school, you may have we may count, for example, the languages as 2, 3, 4 languages are used in the community. But if you look at the language practices of the people, language practices of the individual, for example, I myself consider as multilingual because I speak my mother tongue, I speak Nepali, I speak English and other languages sometimes. So what I'm saying here is, this boundary of languages, if you see language policy from more like this bounded entity perspective about language, then you start counting the languages. But if you see the language as a practice and go to the community and see how people are using different languages, and that is the first thing as a researcher, I see that it is important to look at what languages kids are using, what languages people are using in their everyday practices. And then only we can think of, appropriate language policy and practices. For me as a researcher, what I think is, if it is important as a researcher to legitimize or to recognize what are the language practices. Language practices are very fluid. Language practices are never bounded for me. So no, I can use any, based on functional purposes and based on sometimes more socio-cultural purposes. I use different languages at the different times. So my repertoire is very fluid. I cannot just say that my mother tongue is this, and so I should be speaking this language only. I can speak any language at the same time. And this happens to all bilingual and multilingual kids. So that's why as a researcher, it is important to begin from there and try to connect what is prescribed by government or the institution and see what are the tensions there. So I will pause here. Thank you very much, Ashokji. It's very big.
How a teacher, an active agent at micro level, can create language policy.
Thank you very much, Ashok sir. I would like to add something more on Prem Thack's statement there. How do we take languages or diversity? We are in multilingual settings. If we are examining multilingual situation as a problem or as a resources, then these language policies are generally influenced by this language orientation. Language as a problem, or language as a right, or language as a resource. Then one important thing we need to discuss here. And another, I agree with Dr. Fag that we have a mosaic of, we are enjoying a mosaic of diversity, linguistic diversity, or we can say super diversity. There is inequalities among the languages. Some languages are put at the top. Some other languages are pushed to the marginalization. Then in a school which is multilingual in nature, but if we see the practices there, we can see monolingual practices are prevailed in the schools. So, as you asked me about this, how teachers can play the agentive role to bring the language policies. So, if we see the practices up to now, if we observe or examine the historical shifts, then we have been shifting from English medium to Nepali medium, again English medium. This circular shift can be examined. But what is happening in grassroots level has not been observed critically. Then when I visit several schools for my research purpose, and I find that teachers are not very much aware about the language policy and language in education policy, but they take, or they see, they examine, they observe the existing classroom situation, and accordingly they produce their local language policy, and they deal with the students without being very in line with language policy prescribed to them. Then therefore, here bottom-up approach is preferred in many literatures. If we go to the literatures, then what is the existing scenario in Nepal? We are following top-down approach. The policy has been formulated at the top, being guided by particular ideology, particular socio-political ideologies. Then this policy has been, let's say, disseminated to the schools or the, let's say, ground levels, but there are not much awareness. There is no ideological awareness among the teachers, and teachers do not have much ideas on that. And they take it as normally, and they understand the particular situation, the classroom setting, the classroom dynamics, and they decide on. Therefore, in one word, we can say this language policy, especially in education, need to be created from the practice.
ज्ञानु सर, सरको आवाज धेरै सानो आयो, अलिक छोटो पारौँ त। अलि नजिक ल्याउनु पर्यो माइक्रोफोन
Okay.
It's not
I think I will manage.
very low and अनि छोटो छोटो बाहिर दिनु पर्छ सर
सर अब यसलाई मैले थोरै कन्क्लुड गरेँ ल्याङ्ग्वेज पोलिसी टप डाउन पोलिसीलाई अहिले हामी प्याराडाइम सिफ्ट गरेर बटम अप अप्रोचले गइसकेका छौँ त्यसमा के गर्न सकिन्छ भने स्कुल्स प्यारेन्ट्स कम्युनिटी मेम्बर्स स्पिच कम्युनिटिज दे सुड बी इम्पावर्ड there should be a kind of awareness programs among the teachers and so that they can create the language policy that can work in that particular locality in that particular region. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Avasti, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, I have some concern. I mean, scholars have some concern regarding the decision right now, regarding the decision of some local government bodies, which are making decision on the use of language without any consultation with Language Commission, or we can say without any informed, they are not informed the decisions. Some scholars have raised concern over it. So this scenario, how do you observe this scenario? Whether they are doing right or what could be done? What is the best way to tackle those issues? Dr. Avasti.
That's the fundamental issue. Local governments are entitled to look at their education function and also see how medium of instruction also becomes a part of their jurisdiction. They can make decisions on what would be the choice of medium and how they use languages in schools. That part is very clear. It is explicitly mentioned in the schedule of the Constitution also. However, the Language Commission's role that we see in the Constitution is also closely connected to that function. A Language Commission is entitled also to give advice to the government, to provide technical support, to provide inputs to the government bodies in order to make decisions on what would be the use of language. As Premji earlier indicated that the choices that we make in the family, even parents, even societies, there are many areas where language policies are very much closely connected to the informal or in a way more societal level of our delivery system. That also contributes to the making of the policy. Local governments are now getting all the inputs based on the parental perhaps aspirations that parents always demand for English medium school, English medium education, and also local communities are also asking for this kind of English agenda for education. But the question again, you raised a very vital point that whether the parental choices are informed, whether local governments are making these choices on a very very genuine basis, what is the genuineness, and whether local governments are following any recommendations or how they have reached the decision in order to make a choice of the medium of instruction. Mostly, I think your question was directly linked to English. Local governments are now trying to introduce English as a medium of instruction, regardless of constitutional provision, regardless of the recommendation of the Language Commission, regardless of the damages it can cause to the learning, cognitive development of our children's overall development for their future course of this academic engagement. So we're not saying that local government cannot have the right to make a choice, but number one, they don't have informed, this decision making process. They are making choices based on their vested interest, political pressure, or a kind of ill-informed parental demands. So many things are connected to the local government decisions. And the role of Language Commission in this matter is, we have clearly articulated these consequences. What could be the result of this kind of unwise decision making at the local level? What could be the result of this English medium instruction in a school, how that would affect their learning? So all these discussions are part of Language Commission's sharing, interaction with the local government, with the state, with the federal government. So we are making these issues very clear, giving recommendations to the government that, number one, language provisions that are given in the constitution are binding to all, including local governments, to all. So constitutional provisions cannot be denied, cannot be ignored by the local government. Number two, these choices that we are making at the local level are damaging, harmful to the cognitive capital of children. They are not gaining any a kind of attainments in the learning levels of their education. The other point is market force. For example, the private schools or market is also involved in this process. The money making business, the motivation is making money. So that's why we are also drawing the attention of the government, as Premji earlier intended, showed that how policies are constructed based on some informal these behavioral practices. Pramodji was also indicating something similar to that. So when we talk about the overall scenario in the education system of Nepal, that local government's choices are very worrying to all of us, because local governments are not really making a very calculated assessment, that they are just following the market force, they are just following the intentions of the people, those are motivated to make money. In that sense, I think job that we have, the intellectuals like yourself, all the communities, that we all have to make a kind of extra effort, that how we provide technical support, we provide advice, we provide all the inputs to the local government for them to make more informed choices. They can make choices, but their choices should be informed. The role of the university, role of the intellectuals has been even greater now than any time before, because local governments have been receiving all the mandate to introduce medium instruction in school. But if their choices are fatal to the education system, it will be a huge damage to the entire learning process, and our teachers would be also not taking that comfortably, because they are not prepared to enter into English medium instruction processes in the class. Subject teaching is much better. English as a subject can be much better than the unnecessary jumping into the process of introducing English as a medium instruction at the lower grade. I think that is a global understanding. We all know about these outcomes, even the studies conducted in Nepal or across the world. We now come to a conclusion that we have to make local governments more comfortable with the use of their home language, children's community language, and Nepali can be a kind of second language, or they can continue to get engaged in that process. Subject wise, Nepali can be already in the early grades. English can also be the same, but the way that we are dislodging mother tongue, dislodging English, dislodging Nepali, replacing these things by English can be a very damaging local government's policy choice. So we have to be a little bit aware about how we make some efforts to bring about changes in the behaviors and the attitudes that we are seeing at the local level. Thank you.
मैले म प्रेम सरका, डक्टर प्रेम फ्याक प्रेम सरका आए मैले यो भन्दै गर्दा सरले चाहिँ अघि अलिकति कन्स्टिट्युसन र यो के भन्छ सिकाइ कन्स्टिट्युसन अंग्रेजी कुरा गर्दै गर्दा मैले प्रेम सरलाई थोड़ा सानो एउटा जिज्ञासा के राखे भने संविधानमा गरिएको प्रावधानलाई लोकल बडी र हामीले सबैले पालना गर्ने भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ डेफिनेटली त्यो ठीक छ तर मैले भने के भने एउटा पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटीको आवाज that voice has been reflected in the constitution यस्तो अवस्थामा त्यो कम्युनिटीले चाहिँ आवाज एकातिर तर ग्राउन्डमा चाहिँ आफ्नो छोराछोरीलाई पढाउने र सिकाउने चाहिँ अर्कोतिर त्यसैले गर्दाखेरि I think there is gap we are not able to catch the things कहाँनेर यो समस्या छ भन्ने कुरामा चाहिँ मैले प्रेम सरलाई यो in light with the historical trajectory of language in education policy in Nepal can you elaborate it to us अलि सजिलो भाषामा हामीलाई प्रेम सरले बुझाइदिन सक्नुहुन्छ I mean in light with multilingual education सरले एक ठाउँमा के भन्नुभएको छ भने there is a paradigm shift from monolingual education policy to I mean multilingual education र मदर टङ बेसको कुरा पनि छ त्यो म एकछिन पछि गर्छु सरले यो ग्याप न यो बीचमा पोलिसीमा एउटा ग्राउन्डमा एउटा यो कुरालाई चाहिँ कहाँनेर ग्याप छ के भइराख्या हो त यो कुरामा थोरै प्रकाश पारिदिनु भयो भने हामी आभारी हुन्छौँ प्रेम सर
Again, that's a big question, and as a researcher, I would start off with saying a very simple statement. I think the first thing is, as I said before, if we look at the Constitution, it says, the rights of people to use their mother tongue, and even if you look at this recent national education policy, it says that this mother tongue based multilingual education or multilingual education in general should be policy for basic level of education. And again, recently the CDC has said the basic level Nepali or mother tongue should be used, but for some subjects English can be used. But what I'm saying here is why there is a gap. If you start looking at a gap, then again you go back and you are seeing this policy as very normative, fixed structure. यो कहिले चेन्ज नहुने जस्तो हेर्नुहुन्छ. मैले चाहिँ के हेर्छु भन्दाखेरि why there exists gap. There are, if I'm giving reference of education only. There are so many other domains of language policy. यहाँ हामी education को मात्रै कुरा गर्दैछौँ. We haven't looked at this public spaces को हामीले कुरै गरेका छैनौँ. We haven't looked at other spaces. We are talking about education only. Right? So I will give reference of education only. There exists gap because it is natural. The first, your common, not the macro level policies may not always be implemented as it is in practice, because at the implementation level there are so many actors, I would say, not stakeholders. There are many actors who can manipulate, who can interpret differently, who can negotiate language policies differently for different purposes. For example, English as a medium of instruction. You can see that there are multiple interpretations. That's why it's very interesting to research these perspectives. The second, why there is a gap, because language policy has multiple, language policy is not always implemented as it is intended. There are so many other socio-political and socio-cultural values and beliefs coming in. Just an example, if you look, if I have to give example of English as a medium of instruction, as Dr. Awasthi already mentioned, English as a medium of instruction has any evidence related to learning and learning, and basically there is any references coming from the student's perspective. There is no learning, actually, no learning at the center. But there are other factors, for example, competing with private schools, maybe this big social imagination that educated in English medium of instruction will ensure your future. These are all non-educational, I would say non-learning factors. So, but these are the big factors that are making huge impact actually. So my take is, my perspective is always based on this learning. If we are talking about language in education policy, then we should focus on learning. And if you start focusing on learning, we should look at the students' perspective, what students feel. Then we should come to parents, and then teachers. That's very important. But we have, why there is a gap? Because we haven't actually looked at how learning takes place. For example, let me give you one example. If you keep learning at the center, then you keep students at the center and their languages and what makes them learn effectively. Yes. So and then and another question I think you raised was, there is a big gap, and some people are advocating for mother tongue, but their education maybe is different, and it's a structural problem, because, for example, if our schools are equipped with these multilingual teachers and multilingual education policy as guaranteed by Constitution, for example, and there would be no question of private school implementing English only medium of instruction, and public schools are in a way forced to implement Constitution. So that's why it's a structural problem, and it's blaming the victim is another problem. So you cannot blame the people who are saying that we need multilingual education, meaning that it doesn't mean that we don't need English. English is important. English language teaching is important. English is necessary, but it doesn't mean that we should ignore the children's home languages, basically for building strong foundation of cognitive academic language proficiency. So what I'm saying here is, whether you send your school to private school, whether you send your kids to public schools, whether you send your school to English medium school or mother tongue based or multilingual school, is a choice, and this choice is very problematic, and it is created by it is created by more like neoliberal capitalist, and it has nothing to do with learning. It has nothing to do with learning. And I have seen that kids who are taught in English medium school, actually with the teachers having very low English language proficiency, without any resources, are having a number of problems in learning, basically in the first 3 grades. There is no cognitive academic language proficiency coming up from the students, and the teachers are not able to give clear instruction. And remember, this is not the problem only in public schools. I am not othering public schools, and same problem goes to private school as well. Basically, teaching early grade, teaching students in the early grades in English medium only, which is problematic in both private school as well. So whether you send your kids to public school or private schools, whether you send your kids to English medium schools or multilingual, it's a structural problem. That's why, as a researcher, as an academic, so we should be critiquing these structural problems, not necessarily blaming the victim. Okay, for example, I say that this is important, but I'm sending my kids to public school. This is just blaming the victim and not necessarily challenging the structures and the policies. So that's why my simple argument as a researcher is that our evidences, language policy evidences, basically the policy made by local governments and the schools. I'm not, again, this is not blanket approach. Some schools are making very wonderful language policies. Some local governments are doing very wonderful language policies, helping kids learn effectively. Keep those schools who keep learning at the center. But there are some local governments and they don't have evidence to make language policy. They don't consult the people who know about language policies, and they are implementing this. Okay, and it's fine, because it gives us the time to reflect whether it works or not, and talking with the kids, talking with the parents, and I see that it's very it's not working. Basically, using English only medium of instruction from the first grade is one of the major issues that we should be tackling as a researchers. There is no evidence that learning both language and the content in the second language, and for some people English is third or maybe fourth language. For me, it's third language. In the early grades, there is no evidence that it will contribute to creating strong foundation on literacy, both literacy and cognitive skills. Second, you know, in a way, I see that the move to this English medium of instruction, basically in the local government, is more socio-cultural. Whose interest is served? You know, who is more benefited from this policy? Who is benefited? You know, and you clearly see that the parents who have more access to technology, more access to resources, more access to English, you know, English resources, English language resources, for example, internet, they get more benefit than the kids who come from more multilingual, multicultural background. So that's why it's more, not only, it's not simply educational issue, it's more socio-cultural and political issues. And it's very important to explore and discuss further. Thank you.
Okay. Pramod sir.
Yes, sure.
Sir, in this situation, म सरलाई एउटा सानो न्यारेटिभ सुनाएर सुरु गर्छु। एउटा विद्यार्थीले कक्षा 6 मा वैशाखमा भर्ना भएको विद्यार्थी त्यही कक्षामा अषाढमा चाहिँ विद्यालय छोड्यो। किन छोड्यो भन्दा पत्ता लागेन के सर। अनि म चाहिँ इंग्लिश मिडियम इन्स्ट्रक्सनको विद्यालयमा छु अहिले। इंग्लिश मिडियम इन्स्ट्रक्सन चाहिँ हामीले त्यो विद्यालय नै त्यसको मोडालिटी। त्यसपछि अषाढमा पत्ता लगाउँदा के गर्यो भने किन छोड्यो भन्ने नि थाहा भएन। बाबुआमा चाहिँ दुईजनै टिचर हुनुहुँदो रहेछ, एजुकेटेड। त्यसपछि 1 महिना 2 महिनापछि मैले उसको साथीभाइ सँगै सुत्ने साथी, विद्यार्थी, टिचर सबैबाट पत्ता लगाउँदाखेरि त्यो 6 कक्षामा चाहिँ नेपाली मिडियम इन्स्ट्रक्सन स्कुलबाट हाम्रोमा आएको रहेछ। उसले वैशाख जेठमा पढ्दा पनि के गर्दा पनि क्याप्चर गर्न सकेन। नसकेपछि उसले छोड्यो। उसलाई सबै सोध्दाखेरि उसले के भन्छ भने आई एम फाइन, यहाँ कुनै पनि प्रब्लम छैन तपाईको स्कुलमा, एभ्रिथिङ इज फाइन, बट उसले छोड्यो। त्यसैले this type of situation is there. यस्तो सिचुएसनमा randomly respond गर्ने भन्दा पनि how can we respond the situation? Pramod sir, you often talk, you are working in different area, plurilingual, translanguaging, EMI, MOI, right? So you have been working for years. So how do we respond to situations? So this is, I think this is the problem everywhere in each schools, across the country. So I'm going to focus the discussion regarding medium of instruction policy, EMI, MOI, our structure, challenges are there. So how do we respond?
Thank you for the question. I think this is a very, very relevant question at the moment. म चाहिँ कहाँ सुरु गर्छु भने अब लवदेव सरले नि भन्नुभयो, प्रेम सरले पनि हाम्रो यो लोकल लेभलको ल्याङ्ग्वेज पोलिसीको कुरा गर्नुभयो। म स्लाइटली त्यहाँबाट कुरा गर्छु। म अलिकति केही कुराहरुमा डिसएग्री गर्छु कि when we say we are kind of blaming the local governments, prem sarle bhanनुभयो कि होइन, like we can't blame the people who are already suffering. When a local level आफैमा पनि उनीहरु sufferers छन्, or अथवा हामीले ethno linguistic group हरुको कुरा गर्यौ भने उनीहरु historically they have been suffered. भनेपछि हामीले local governance अथवा local government को policy making को कुरा गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ we need to think how or from where their ideologies are being driven. उनीहरुले इंग्लिश मिडियम यदि रोजेका छन् भने त्यो इंग्लिश मिडियम को आइडियोलोजी कहाँबाट आएको छ त, right? Like it's all about the structural phenomenon कि they are all coming from the national level policies. So I'm not going to blame the local level. I will directly blame the elite policymakers who have always been in the power at the national level and making the policies which are not very responsive to the local level. एउटा कुरा। अर्को कुरा, जब हामी उनीहरुले इंग्लिश मिडियम बनाउँछन्, इंग्लिश मिडियम पोलिसी उनीहरुले डेभलप गरेको छ भने from what position are we going to say that's a wrong policy, right? हामीले कुन पोजिसनबाट त्यो गलत हो भन्न सकिन्छ जस्तै कि म तपाईलाई एक्जाम्पल दिन्छु मेरो पीएचडी रिसर्च जहाँ मैले वीरगन्जमा गरेँ एउटा जुन स्कुलमा मेरो एथनोग्राफिक फिल्ड वर्क मैले कन्डक्ट गरेँ द्याट स्कुल adopted EMI in 2012 or 13 so it's like 7 years ago उनीहरूले कसरी र कुन एजेन्डाबाट EMI ल्याए भने
is it a community school?
Yes, it's a community school. It's a community EMI based community school.
Community school.
हजुर उनीहरूले के गर्यो भने like the children, you know, children from elite families go to English medium private schools and they often get like, you know, better grades in their, you know, secondary level examinations. Then there came the policy of the scholarship. Still like exactly the policy म सम्झिदिन अहिले तर policy के छ भने कम्युनिटी स्कुलबाट पास भएको विद्यार्थीहरूलाई सर्टेन ग्रेड पाउँछन् उनीहरू स्कलरशिपको लागि मेडिसिन अथवा इन्जिनियरिङमा जानको लागि भनेपछि त्यो लोकल लेभल भएका गार्जियनहरूले जो आफ्नो बच्चालाई प्राइभेट स्कुलमा पढाउन सकेनन् उनीहरू चाहिँ सरकारी स्कुलमा पठाए र त्यो कारणले गर्दाखेरि like they feel that their children are not going to compete with the elite children because they are not being taught through English medium. So they collectively त्यो स्कुलको परिवेशमा चाहिँ पेरेन्ट्सहरू चाहिँ collectively आएर उनीहरू के भने why not we should, you know, we should start EMI. So we get English medium education as well as we get certification from the private school. So both will make, you know, collectively make our children, you know, competitive in the future, right? So they came, you know, with the EMI policy from more a kind of liberation perspective. So they wanted to liberate themselves from socio-economic marginalization, right? When they're like, two point of view, but how are we going to say that's wrong, right? उनीहरूको एउटा aspiration को हिसाबबाट, right? हामीले wrong कहाँ भन्छौँ from, you know, learning, you know, viewpoint जुन प्रेम सरले फोकस गर्नुभयो भनेपछि लर्निङमा आउँदाखेरि मैले इङ्ग्लिश मिडियम इन्स्ट्रक्सन भन्दा पनि मिडियम भए पनि they are still like, you know, using multiple languages. They are, you know, like using translanguaging, if I, you know, can use the term from the perspective of mixing different languages and bringing their multiple repertoire in the process of learning and negotiating their language practices, right? उनीहरूले त्यो practice गरिरहेका छन्. And from that perspective, right, or from that, you know, practice, I think they are learning the language. So still, अर्को कुरा चाहिँ हामीले we cannot, you know, make a very strong claim that children are not learning. So children are learning, but what is the reference point? Kun reference point what हामीले हेर्ने हो कि to what extent they are learning, right?
Learning.
Because they are, you know, getting good grades. त्यही स्कुलबाट इङ्ग्लिस जुन इङ्ग्लिस मिडियम कम्युनिटी स्कुल छन् त्यो स्कुलका विद्यार्थीहरूले प्रदेश नम्बर 2 मा टप गरे, right? So it's more kind of policy को एउटा कुरा छँदैछ. अर्को भनेको how the teachers are competent and how they are, you know, delivering the instruction in the classroom and how collaborative, you know, collaboratively they are delivering the education, collaboration with the parents, teachers, and, you know, other stakeholders. So each is मैले चाहिँ अलिकति भनौँ न, as a researcher we need to think more deeply into that. You know, more coming from the ground level. And parents को demand को कुराहरू गर्दाखेरि again like, you know, मैले सुरुमा पनि भने कि the parents demand are not, you know, demand is not necessarily English medium. मैले धेरै पेरेन्ट्सहरुसँग कुरा गर्दाखेरि मैले एउटै कुरामा के सोधे भने, do you want your children to be educated through English medium or you want them to learn English skills? उनीहरुको simple answer थियो, my children want, you know, I want my children to develop English proficiency. भने English proficiency हाम्रो अहिले मेन एजेन्डा के हुनुपर्छ भने हामीले कस्तो खाले ल्याङ्ग्वेज पोलिसी बनाउँछौं जुन ल्याङ्ग्वेज पोलिसीबाट, you know, हामीले उनीहरुको linguistic rights को कुरा पनि एड्रेस गर्छौं. We can also address the issues of how the children can, you know, learn the content and language, you know, in a better way. अनि अर्को कुरा भनेको English को demand छ भने if they want their children to learn English skills, how we can incorporate English in our language in education policies, right? So all these things कुरा गर्दाखेरि हामीले अब प्रेम सरले रिसेन्टली 2018 मा च्याप्टर एउटा पब्लिस गर्नुभयो ट्रान्स ल्याङ्ग्वेजिङ इन EMI क्लासरुम. म अलिकति क्रिटिकल छु ट्रान्स ल्याङ्ग्वेजिङको बारेमा, but I think that's not the right platform to talk about the critique of trans languaging. But if we think more from a plurilingual perspective of EMI, that means how we can include multiple languages, in EMI. So that could be a better way to go ahead. At the same time, हामीले plurilingual approach to EMI को कुरा गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ we need to define the boundaries, as Prem sir mentioned, what exactly we mean by the boundaries between the languages. When we say there's no boundary between the languages, then again, like, it may create some sort of conflict, that if there is no boundary between the languages, how do we think about the identity, right? What is our identity? So why we are talking about the multilingual or mother tongue based education, why we're focusing on the term mother tongue if we say there's no boundary between the languages. So still there are lots of conflicts between these theoretical viewpoints. So हामीले still नेपालको कन्टेक्स्टमा चाहिँ हामीले डिफाइन गर्नुपर्छ language boundary boundary भनेको के हो र कुन कन्टेक्स्टमा कुन ल्याङ्ग्वेजेस स्टुडेन्टको मदर टङ हो, and how we can incorporate नेपालीको स्ट्याटस के हुन सक्छ, इङ्ग्लिसको स्ट्याटस के हुन सक्छ, कसरी त्यो ल्याङ्ग्वेजलाई हामीले इन्कर्पोरेट गर्नु. इट्स अल अ बिग क्वेसन, and it all requires more ethnographic studies from the ground level, and in doing so I appreciate Prem sir's approach to engaged ethnography. I think that is one of the best approach to go with.
Okay, thank you so much, Pramod sir. Prem sir has already, Dr. Fat has already raised the structural support. He has talked about there is no support, structural support. There's support. There is no questions. Type of things he discussed there, explained. So how do you observe mother tongue based multilingual education? Very specific challenges, and what are the lessons learned, and what can be the future? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. As a student of mother tongue based multilingual education, I have been working on this area for a few years, and I would like to connect this idea or this issue by from two perspectives. The first perspective, as Faxer has already mentioned, that is learning perspective हामीले कुनै पनि ल्याङ्ग्वेज इन एजुकेसन पोलिसीलाई हेर्दाखेरि लर्निङ पर्सपेक्टिभबाट हेर्नु पर्यो. हाम्रो बच्चाहरू जब अर्ली एजको कुरा गरौँ, इन अर्ली ग्रेड जब हाम्रो बच्चालाई अथवा स्पेसली द स्टुडेन्ट्स फ्रम माइनोरिटी ग्रुप्स, when they are sent to school, are they getting with the language that has been used at school or not? यो महत्त्वपूर्ण कुरा हो. हाम्रो लर्निङ यदि सेन्टर हो भने बच्चालाई उनीहरूको फ्यु इयर्स केही मोडल्सहरू छ, पहिलो 3 वर्ष हुन सक्छ, अथवा पहिलो 5 वर्ष हुन सक्छ, अथवा पहिलो 8 वर्ष हुन सक्छ. हामी कुन मोडलमा जान सक्छौँ, त्यो मोडलमा चाहिँ कम्तीमा उनीहरूको भाषामा हामीले उनीहरूलाई त्यो लर्निङको अपर्च्युनिटी उपलब्ध गराउनुपर्छ भन्ने एउटा यो लिटरेचर अथवा थियोरी अथवा रिसर्चले पनि हामीलाई इन्फर्म गर्छ भने. दोस्रो के छ भने लिङ्ग्विस्टिक राइटको पर्सपेक्टिभबाट हेर्दा पनि वेदर एकातिर एउटा ल्याङ्ग्वेजलाई हामीले प्रिभिलेज गरिरहेछौँ, one language at the top or the powerful language or the language of elites, and in the middle there is a national language Nepali, then we are also promoting that language. And what about the other minority languages? Then one day if we continue on this, then the minority languages will be only in the history. This linguistic diversity that we consider as our property, then if we cannot connect it to education, then that will be a great mistake. Right perspective, linguistic rights को पर्सपेक्टिभबाट यो बच्चाहरूलाई चाहिँ आफ्नो भाषामा सिक्ने अवसर दिनुपर्छ भन्ने दुईटा एडभोकेसी छ. त्यसपछि म थोरै I would like to just add something more in your basic interpersonal communication skill र cognitive academic language proficiency. यो दुईटा proficiency that is needed to get the better proficiency in the language need to be developed in single language. एउटा भाषामा डेभलप हुनुपर्छ, चाहे त्यो हामी नेपालीमा बेसिक इन्टरपर्सनल कम्युनिकेसन स्किल डेभलप भइसकेपछि त्यसपछि हामीले त्यही भाषामा नै कग्निटिभ र एकाडेमिक ल्याङ्ग्वेज प्रोफिसियन्सी डेभलप गराउन सक्यौँ बच्चाको भने द्याट विल अस्योर बेटर अचिभमेन्ट, बेटर लर्निङ एन्ड क्वालिटी लर्निङ। यो कुराहरूलाई जोड्नको लागि मदर टङ बेस्ड मल्टिलिङ्गुअल एजुकेसनलाई अहिले चाहिँ नेपाल गभर्मेन्टले पनि यसलाई चाहिँ विभिन्न इन्टरनेसनल डिक्लरेसन्सहरूलाई रेटिफाई गरिसँगै it has been implemented, it has been in the pilot phase, but very what we say यो दुर्भाग्यवश के छ भने यो चाहिँ जुन आधारमा जानु पर्थ्यो त्यो जान सकेको छैन। मैले एउटा सानो सन्दर्भ यसमा जोड्छु सर, समय भयो भने मैले very recently as a part of my mini research project I have visited some schools, two schools especially. One school, एउटा स्कुल कस्तो थियो भने भर्खरै नेपाली कम्युनिटी स्कुल जुन नेपाली मिडियम इन्स्ट्रक्सन चलाइरहेको थियो उसले चाहिँ पब्लिक प्रेसर टेक्न नसकेर इङ्ग्लिस मिडियम इन्स्ट्रक्सनमा सिफ्ट भएको छ। अर्को स्कुल के छ भने विगत 10 वर्षदेखि एलिट्सहरूको चाहिँ क्लासको स्टुडेन्ट्सहरूलाई इङ्ग्लिस मिडियम इन्स्ट्रक्सनको माध्यमबाट सर्भ गरिरहेको। देन व्हेन आई भिजिटेड व्हाट इज एउटा हामी पोलिसी भन्छौँ, वी आर ओन्ली टकिङ अबाउट द पोलिसी, but if we go to the practice level there is quite difference. अलिक फरक चाहिँ मैले के भेटाएँ भने त्यो भर्खरै इङ्ग्लिस मिडियममा सिफ्ट भएको नेपाली मिडियम अफ इन्स्ट्रक्सनको स्कुलको टिचर्सहरूसँग मैले हेड टिचरसँग इन्टरभ्यू गर्दाखेरि उहाँले भेरी क्लियरली एन्ड फ्रेङ्कली हि टोल्ड द्याट हामीले प्यारेन्ट्सहरूको प्रेसरलाई ठेक्न सकेनौँ। नजिकै एउटा बोर्डिङ स्कुल छ, त्यो बोर्डिङ स्कुलमा विद्यार्थीहरूको सङ्ख्या बढी भयो, हाम्रो चाहिँ जम्मा 65 जना विद्यार्थी छ। हामीले यो प्रेसर यदि हामीले यो गरेनौँ भने दिस स्कुल विल बी हाउन्टिङ हाउस, नोबडी विल कम। अनि त्यो भएर हामीले चाहिँ यो सिफ्ट गऱ्यौँ। अहिले थ्याङ्क्स गड देन स्टुडेन्ट्स आर रिमार्केबली एडेड अर द वी हेभ बिन गेटिङ द स्टुडेन्ट्स नाउ आफ्टर इन्ट्रोड्युसिङ इट एज अ इङ्ग्लिस मिडियम स्कुल। तर जब टिचर्सहरूलाई मैले कम्युनिकेसन गरेँ टिचर्सहरूसँग के गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ पहिलाको स्थिति what you were doing in the past and what you are doing at present भन्दाखेरि खासै फन्डामेन्टल डिफरेन्सहरू त्यहाँ देखाउनु भयो। उहाँले नेपालीमै पढाइराख्नु भएको छ, बाहिर साइनबोर्डमा इङ्ग्लिस मिडियम अफ इन्स्ट्रक्सन लेखिएको छ, विद्यार्थीहरू आएको छ, स्कुलमा बढेको छ, त्यसैमा विद्यालय म्यानेजमेन्ट कमिटी, स्कुल म्यानेजमेन्ट कमिटी, प्यारेन्ट्स आर ह्याप्पी। तर रियालिटीमा के छ भने टिचर्स आर नट स्टिल रेडी to just adopt English as a medium of instruction, and they agreed that उनीहरूले त्यो अग्री गर्यो। अनि फेरि अर्को स्कुलमा जुन इङ्ग्लिस मिडियम भएको स्कुलमा म गएँ, उहाँहरूले के भन्नु भने बाहिर पोलिसीमा चाहिँ के छ, स्कुल has made the policy only English policy inside the class or inside the school premises, but reality having focus group discussion with the teachers गर्दाखेरि उहाँहरूले के भन्नु भने it is not possible here. Thus, we cannot do injustice to the learners, those who expect the Nepali language in the classroom while teaching mathematics or the content पढाउँदाखेरि हामीले चाहिँ कम्तीमा उनीहरूको भाषा नबोल्यो भने त हामी इन्जस्टिस त्यो चाहिँ we are creating a kind of silence in the classroom. Okay. त्यो कारणले गर्दाखेरि मैले यो मदर टङ बेस्ड मल्टिलिङ्गुअल एजुकेसन जुन अहिले चाहिँ पोलिसी प्रोभिजन पनि छ, पोलिसी सपोर्ट पनि छ, तर चाहिँ ग्राउन्ड रुट्स के अरे हामी लोकल लेभलमा गयौँ भने इङ्ग्लिस मिडियम इन्स्ट्रक्सन भएका स्कुलहरूले पनि इन रियालिटीमा उनीहरूले नेपाली मिडियम अथवा अघि प्रमोद सरले भन्नुभयो ट्रान्सलेटिङ र ट्रान्सल्याङ्ग्वेजिङ गरिरहेको छ। अझै त्यसमा धेरै कुराहरू के देखिन्छ, ट्रान्सल्याङ्ग्वेजिङ भन्दा पनि ट्रान्सलेटिङ टेक्निकलाई उनीहरूले इम्प्लोय गरेको छ। देन देयरफोर दिस इज माई पोइन्ट इज हियर, if we expect better learning language, अब English language भनेको international language, it certain has a prestige power related to market or the competition, यसका धेरै एडभान्टेजेसहरू छन्। तर पनि मिडियम अफ इन्स्ट्रक्सनलाई अर्ली एजमा हामीले लर्निङलाई जस्टिस गर्ने हो र इक्वालिटी, जस्टिस, इक्विटीका कुराहरू गर्ने हो भने हामीले कम्तीमा पहिलो 5 वर्ष विद्यार्थीहरूलाई उनीहरूको मातृभाषामा पढाउँदा चाहिँ हामीले उनीहरूको जुन आउनुपर्ने लर्निङ हो, भित्रबाट चाहिँ आउनुपर्ने लर्निङ हो, त्यो गर्न सकिन्छ कि भन्ने धेरै रिसर्च फाइन्डिङहरूले पनि भनेको हुनाले आई हेभ बिन डुइङ दिस रिसर्च एन्ड स्पेसली मैले मेरो रिसर्च को क्रममा मैले के हेरिरहेको छु भने नेपाल गभर्मेन्टले पाइलट स्टडी पनि गर्यो। 2007 मा पाइलट स्टडी गरेको छ विभिन्न सम्भवतः 8वटा जिल्लामा। अनि त्यो पाइलट स्टडीले के देखायो भने केही वर्षपछि चाहिँ त्यो मदर टङ बेस्ड मल्टिलिङ्गुअल एजुकेसनहरू इङ्ग्लिस मिडियममा सिफ्ट भएको छ। यो झापाको केसमा एउटा भएको छ। त्यसै गरी मैले लास्ट विक भन्दा पनि म 1 महिना पहिले चाहिँ यो महेन्द्रनगरको एउटा स्कुल देखतबुलीमा भएको एउटा स्कुल जहाँ चाहिँ राणा मदर टङमा चाहिँ पढाइन्थ्यो। त्यति बेला चाहिँ नेपाल गभर्मेन्टले चाहिँ इन्टरभेन्सन गरेको थियो, पाइलट स्टडी गरेको थियो। त्यो स्कुलमा जाँदाखेरि टिचर स्टिल आर स्ट्रगलिङ टु मेन्टेन मदर टङ बेस्ड मल्टिलिङ्गुअल एजुकेसन। they are struggling, but they are facing the problems of funding and teacher training and other basic components of mother tongue based multilingual education. Then finally, to be very conclusive, I would like to just say that mother tongue based multilingual education लाई हामी थोरै एउटा इङ्ग्लिस भाषालाई पछि गएर इन्ट्रोड्युस गरौँ। 1 देखि 5 सम्म मदर टङ बेस्ड गरौँ, त्यसपछि नेपालीलाई इन्ट्रोड्युस गरौँ र इङ्ग्लिसलाई चाहिँ स्टेप इन्क्रिमेन्टल स्टेजमा लगेर जस्ट इन्ट्रोड्युस गर्यो भने इट विल जस्ट क्याटर गिभ फ्रुटफुल रिजल्ट भनेर यो एरियामा चाहिँ अलिक फोकस गर्नुपर्छ कि जस्तो लाग्छ। धन्यवाद।
Okay, Gyanu Paudil sir, thank you so much. So this is the round that we are going to pick up some questions. First of all, I'll pick the question. Hari Singh Karkiji has raised the questions: what is government plans and policies to formulate proper language policy and plans in the far western part of Nepal, which is much more diverse on its language richness, even district-wise languages? What could be the proper language policy in province number 7, far western part of Nepal? After CBS 2012, the language like Darchuli, Baitedeli, Ochami, Bajangi, Bajureli, Doteli, Tharu, and so on, it has recorded. This has not been identified as distinct languages earlier, like census report in 2001. What could be the result of this division? Are there any ideology of politics or any people's awareness? The situation is blurred there. Avasti sir.
एकदमै महत्त्वपूर्ण छ। अब यो खास गरी जुन हाम्रो प्रादेशिक स्वरूप छ त्यसमा भाषाहरूको वितरणको अवस्था, भाषाहरूको अहिलेको जे स्वरूप छ त्यसलाई पनि आधार मान्ने हो भने अब हामीले भाषिक नीति के हुन्छ भन्ने कुरा एकदमै अहम प्रश्न हो। मूलतः अब प्रदेश 7 मा विभिन्न किसिमको जिल्लागत भाषाको त्यहाँ केही तथ्याङ्क अगाडि आएको छ। मान्छेहरूले आफ्नो भाषालाई पहिचान एउटा चाहिँ कायम गर्ने, आफूलाई चिनाउने माध्यम पनि हो त्यो, त्यसमा अन्यथा लिने कुरा छैन। किन मान्छेलाई एउटा चाहिँ आफ्नो इम्पावरमेन्टको, आफ्नो पहिचानको, आफ्नो स्थानको सचेतनाले नै एउटा भाषाको अभिव्यक्ति त्यसरी प्रकट भएको छ, त्यो आफैमा ठिकै कुरा पनि हो। तर अब ती भाषालाई हामीले एउटा ढङ्गले पठन पाठनमा विद्यालयको पद्धतिमा कसरी जोड्ने भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ त्यसको केही अहम प्रश्नहरू चाहिँ हाम्रो सामु छ। पहिलो कुरो चाहिँ के भने जस्तो हामीले जुन अत्यन्त अब स्थानीयकरण गरेर भाषाहरूलाई नामाकरण गर्दै आएका छौँ। अब डडेलधुराली भन्यो, अछामी भन्यो, बाजुरेली, डडेलधुराली, डोटेली, बैतडेली, विभिन्न किसिमको त्यो एउटा प्रदेश नम्बर 7 को भाषिक विविधता छ। तर त्यसलाई पनि अहिले हामीले एउटा अभ्यास गरी के गरिरहेछौँ भने ती भाषा म्युचुअली इन्टेलिजिबल कति छन्, ती भाषाको नाम मात्र फरक हो अथवा तिनीहरूको शब्दमा, व्याकरणमा र उच्चारण पद्धतिमा अन्तरसम्बन्ध कतिको छ भन्ने हिसाबले एउटा चाहिँ हामीले अध्ययन गरिरहेछौँ। त्यसको आधारमा चाहिँ हाम्रो चाहना के छ भने सकेसम्म ती भाषाहरू चाहिँ यदि एउटै कमन ग्राउन्डबाट त्यसरी जोडिएका छन् भने समझदारी बनाएर, जस्तै अब डोट्यालीको एउटा कुरा होला, त्यस्तै गरिकन अरू भाषा पनि त्यहाँ आफ्नो ढङ्गले केही विकसित भएका छन्। त्यस कारणले पहिलो कुरो चाहिँ अब प्रदेशसित पनि हाम्रो सम्पर्क संवाद भइरहेछ। त्यहाँको प्रादेशिक भाषा अहिलेको तथ्याङ्कमा चाहिँ के छ भने सबभन्दा लार्जेस्ट करिब 7 लाख भन्दा बढी वक्ताहरूले बोल्ने भाषा भनेको डोट्याली, अरू भाषा पनि अब सीमित रहेका छन्। त्यसकारणले अब एउटा जो अहिले तथ्याङ्क हामीसित तथ्याङ्कका आधारले पनि भाषालाई के हामीले पठन पाठनमा जोड्नुपर्ने हुन्छ। तर साथसाथै के आयो समस्या हामीलाई भन्दाखेरि अब एकातिर चाहिँ हामीले सबै भाषालाई विस्थापित गरेर अङ्ग्रेजीतिर गइरहेछौँ, अर्कोतिर फेरि अब स्थानीय भाषाको पनि त्यो पहिचान छ। अहिले तपाईँहरूले जो कुरा उठाउनु भएको छ एउटा टेन्सन चाहिँ देखिन्छ। टेन्सन कहाँनिर भन्दाखेरि एकातिर चाहिँ भाषाको माध्यमबाट आफूलाई पहिचान परिचित गराउने, आफ्नो स्थान सुनिश्चित गर्ने त्यो किसिमको एउटा चेतना पनि विकसित भएको छ। अर्कोतिर चाहिँ हामीले के भने सबै भाषालाई चाहिँ पन्छ्याएर अङ्ग्रेजीमा जाने किसिमको त्यो एउटा ढङ्गले परिवेश पनि बनेको कारणले हामीले अब स्थानीय समुदायलाई दोष दिने, उनीहरूलाई एकदमै गलत काम गर्यो भन्ने भन्दा पनि एउटा ढङ्गले चाहिँ बाह्य वातावरणको बाह्य अहिलेको स्वरूपले पनि त्यो कुरा बाध्यकारी बनाएको छ। किन हाम्रो सबै पद्धतिहरू एकातिर हेरौँ न, स्थानीय मान्छेले आफ्नो भाषा चाहन्छन्, आफ्नो भाषा छोड्न चाहँदैनन्। तर अब हाम्रो परिवेश, अब हाम्रो सङ्घीय मानसिकता, प्रादेशिक मानसिकता अथवा सबै हाम्रो बौद्धिक जमातको मानसिकता भनेको पुरै एङ्ग्लोफाइल त्यो माइन्डसेटबाट हामी चलिरहेको छौँ भने चाहिँ इङ्ग्लिस ओन्ली भन्ने। अब हामीले हाम्रै कारणले यो गलत दुर्घटना भएको छ। किन यसमा चाहिँ अभिभावकलाई अथवा स्थानीय भाषिक समुदायलाई दोष दिने भन्दा पनि हामीले के गरौँ भने बढीभन्दा बढी मौखिक रूपमै भए पनि आफ्नो भाषालाई प्रयोग गरेर नानीहरूको जे सिकाइ छ, जे संज्ञान छ, उनीहरूलाई बुझ्ने किसिमको चाहिँ वातावरणमा चाहिँ पहिलो हाम्रो सबैको पहल हुनुपर्छ। किन सबै त्यो कुरा सिकाइलाई नै मेटाएर बुझाइलाई हामीले सम्मान नगरेर एकदम अङ्ग्रेजी मात्रै भन्यो भने हाम्रो नानीहरूको कुनै पनि जग बन्दैन। त्यस कारणले हाम्रो एउटा चाहिँ विन विन गर्ने एउटा सम्भावनाको खोजी के हो भने सुरुको अवस्थामा बढीभन्दा बढी हामीले चाहिँ डोट्याली हुन्छ कि बैतडीली हुन्छ कि अछामी बाजुरेली जुनै भाषा हुन्छ उनीहरूलाई बुझ्ने बनाउने। त्यसपछि क्रमागत रूपमा अब दोस्रो भाषामा जाने। तर विषयको रूपमा चाहिँ हामीले कुनै समस्या देखेका छैनौँ। अङ्ग्रेजी पनि विषयको रूपमा छ, नेपाली भाषाको पनि विषय रूपमा व्यवस्था छ भने अनावश्यक हामीले लफडा गरेर विभिन्न किसिमको जटिलता सिर्जना गरेका छौँ। हाम्रो कारणले सिर्जेका समस्या हुन्थ्यो। अभिभावकले, आमाबाबुले कहिले पनि आफ्नो भाषा छोड्ने भनेका छैनन्। तर हाम्रो मानसिकता जस्तै भनौँ अहिले हामी सबै मान्छेहरू चाहिँ मुखले जे भने पनि व्यवहारमा हामी सबै के गरिरहेका छौँ, अङ्ग्रेजीलाई कसरी स्थापित गर्ने, अङ्ग्रेजी बेगर हाम्रो रोजीरोटी चल्दैन, अङ्ग्रेजीलाई कसरी हामीले चाहिँ विद्यालयमा सबैतिर लैजाने भन्ने किसिमको एउटा चाहिँ त्यो सोच बनाएको कारणले नानीहरूलाई विद्यालयको पठन पाठनमा अथवा भनौँ घर परिवारको परिवेशमा चाहिँ हाम्रो नानीहरूलाई चाहिँ केन्द्र भागमा राख्यो भने चाहिँ यो समस्या समाधानतिर जान्छ। होइन भने चाहिँ अब हाम्रो परिवारलाई पनि हामीले त्यसमा समावेश नगर्ने, हाम्रो मात्रै चाहनाले चाहिँ सबै एङ्ग्लोफाइल ओरिएन्टेसनबाट गयो भने चाहिँ यो समस्या समाधान हुँदैन। त्यस कारणले दुईटै पक्षबाट जाउँ, आफ्नो सिकाइको हिसाबले स्थानीय पहिचान, आफ्नो जे चिन्तन सोच छ त्यसलाई पनि सम्मान गरेर स्थानीय भाषालाई बढीभन्दा बढी आफ्नो एउटा ढङ्गले समुदायमा प्रयोगको विस्तार गरौँ। र पछि क्रमागत रूपमा कहाँनिर कुन भाषा चाहिन्छ, प्रारम्भिक चरणमा चाहिँ अब नेपालीको प्रयोग कति हुन्छ, अङ्ग्रेजको प्रयोग कति हुन्छ, विषयगत रूपमा चाहिँ त्यो व्यवस्थालाई चाहिँ हामीले प्रयोग गरेका छौँ। माध्यमको रूपमा चाहिँ मलाई लाग्छ सुरुमै अङ्ग्रेजी राख्दाखेरि नेपाललाई कुनै फाइदा छैन। अघि हाम्रो अनुसन्धानबाट पनि देखाएको कुरा साथीहरूले भन्नुभएको छ, मैले यही कुरा राखेँ। भाषा अहिले पनि यही धारबाट चाहिँ अगाडि बढेको अवस्था छ। तपाईँको विचारलाई मैले एकदम सम्मान गर्छु।
धन्यवाद सर, धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद। मैले अर्को I'll pick up another queries by Gunaraj Nepal. In a country like ours, market demand seems to be functioning as a public agency that has encouraged government school to adopt EMI, English medium instruction, and government school are led by the idea that this is the only way to challenge English medium private schools, at least in terms of numbers and gradually inequality. How do you see this fighting spirit of survival of government school at the time when they are losing students every year? To Dr. Fab and Mr. Sa, Dr. Fab, Prem sir.
यो चाहिँ हो, यो अझै यो क्वेसन चाहिँ जहिले आउने हो। म आज मात्रै यो एक दुई हप्ता अब म यही डेटा ट्रान्सक्राइब गर्दै थिएँ क्या। मैले यही के भन्नुहुन्छ भनेर यो चाहिँ what I am saying is मैले के भन्दै थिएँ भने यो क्वेसन चाहिँ जहिले आउने कुरा हो। यो अब म यसमा अर्को क्वेसन गर्छु ल, अनि सजिलो होला जस्तो लाग्छ। सरकारी स्कुल No, they have to survive, है government community school, they have to survive रे है, and they have to compete with private school रे त्यो पनि, and because I don't see that there is any evidence. अनि अर्को चाहिँ they have to के अरे अर्को question छ, they have to the students number has increased rate. I don't see any evidence है त्यहाँ पनि English medium instruction भएर हो त्यो भन्दा अगाडि चाहिँ what I would like to ask all of us as a researcher, हामी सबै टिचर रिसर्चर सबै यो ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा इन्ट्रेस्ट भएको मान्छेलाई म के क्वेसन गर्न चाहन्छु भने नि पब्लिक स्कुलहरू किन बिग्रे त त्यसो भने त्यो EMI हुनुभन्दा अगाडि पब्लिक स्कुलमा विद्यार्थी किन कम भयो, विद्यार्थी किन फेल भए, अभिभावकले पब्लिक स्कुललाई किन ट्रस्ट गरेन, why didn't they trust public schools? हामी टिचरले के गर्यौं, हामी पब्लिक स्कुल चलाउने हेड सरहरूले के गर्यौं? I think we should go back to that question first, हैन? मलाई चाहिँ त्यो क्वेसनमा गयौं भने नि, and then there are so many things that we can answer easily. And now let's come to this EMI, and it's true that as Pramodji already said, your EMI policy is a discourse now. म चाहिँ भन्छु it's not practice. It's discourse, more of discourse rather than practice, है? अनि किनभने अघि सबै कुरा आइसक्यो EMI चाहिँ पोलिसी भन्ने चाहिँ छ, तर गर्ने चाहिँ मोर हाम्रो पेडागोजीहरु EMI चाहिन्छ अनि विद्यार्थी संख्या बढ्छ भन्ने कुरामा चाहिँ दुईटा एभिडेन्स आउँछ मेरो चाहिँ यो पब्लिक स्कुलका टिचर्सहरुसँग कुरा गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ एउटा कुरा चाहिँ किन के छ भन्दाखेरि एउटा कुरा के सत्य हो भने त्यो EMI भन्ने चाहिँ नाम मात्रै हो, त्यो नाम दियो भने चाहिँ के हुन्छ, त्यो चाहिँ क्यापिटल भयो, त्यो एक किसिमको त्यो डिस्कोर्समा छ, अंग्रेजी माध्यममा राम्रो अंग्रेजी माध्यम भयो भने राम्रो क्वालिटी एजुकेसन हुन्छ सो भन्ने चाहिँ अभिभावकहरुको एउटा होल त्यो डिस्कोर्स छ, बट दैट डिस्कोर्स इज नट, हैन, डिस्कोर्स इट इम्प्याक्ट्स बट डिस्कोर्स शुड बी क्रिटिक एन्ड दिस इज देयर इज नो रियालिटी दैट। अर्को सत्य चाहिँ के हो भने धेरै हामीले के पनि हेर्नु पनि जुन स्कुलमा EMI बिना पनि अंग्रेजी माध्यम प्रयोग नगरे पनि अंग्रेजी राम्रो पढाएका छन् कक्षा 1 देखि त्यस्तो स्कुलहरुमा हेर्ने हो भने विद्यार्थी संख्या तिनीहरुको घटेको पनि छैन, अर्कोमा अझै त्यो नेपाली माध्यममै भए पनि अंग्रेजी माध्यममै नभने पनि आइराखेको गुणस्तरीय स्कुलहरुको केस हेर्दाखेरि के देखिन्छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ यस्तो स्कुलहरु जहाँ चाहिँ के छैन, त्यो पब्लिक स्कुलहरु जहाँ चाहिँ त्यो अंग्रेजी माध्यम भन्दा अगाडि सारै बिग्रेका, जस्तो मानिलियौं अत्यन्तै धेरै राजनीति भएका, के अरे यो हेड सरको नियुक्तिदेखि लिएर शिक्षकको नियुक्तिदेखि लिएर पठन पाठन त कुरै छोड्नुस्, त्यो किताब त आदि पनि नसकिने स्कुलहरु। अब अहिले त्यो प्रब्लमलाई देयर आर मेनी अदर प्रब्लम्स अनि हामी EMI भनेर त्यसलाई चाहिँ हामी ढाकछोप गर्न खोजिरहेछौं कि, सो देयर आर सो मेनी अदर थिंग्स, है। अनि अहिले म एउटा स्कुलको केस हेरिरहेको थिएँ, एकजना यो भक्तपुरको सरले के भन्नुहुन्छ भने सर यो अंग्रेजी माध्यम नगर्दा पनि मेरोमा विद्यार्थी धेरै आएका छन्, अझै हामी त नेवारी पनि पढाउँछौं, खै अब यो मलाई थाहा छैन। त्यसैले त हिजो बिग्रेको कुरालाई आज EMI को कारणले बढेको भन्न चाहिँ त्यो कोरिलेसन छैन, है। त्यो चाहिँ हामी एकदमै सचेत हुनुपर्छ। त्यसले चाहिँ वी आर सिम्पली रोमान्टिसाइजिङ द भ्यालु अफ इंग्लिश मिडियम एज ए पनासिया अथवा के भनौं, है, त्यो औषधि एकदम अचूक जस्तो छ। अब म अर्को चाहिँ के भइराखेको छ भने गुण्डा सरको यो क्वेशन चाहिँ विशेष गरी यो शहरतिर चाहिँ अलिकति बढी प्रब्लम छ। यहाँ चाहिँ देयर इज भेरी स्ट्रक्चरल प्रब्लम। स्ट्रक्चरल प्रब्लम भनेको सरकारी नीतिमा के गल्ती छ भने एउटा स्कुल चाहिँ यहाँ मेरो समुदायमा एउटा स्कुल खोलेको छ, त्यसै गेटमा प्राइभेट स्कुल खोल्न दिएपछि देयर इज नो एनी साइन्टिफिक रिजन्स दैट द कम्युनिटी नीड्स 2, 3, 4 more other private schools to cater the needs of this community members, है। त्यो चाहिँ एकदमै स्ट्रक्चरल प्रब्लम छ। त्यसैकारणले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ यसलाई चाहिँ हामीले EMI के कारणले गर्दा विद्यार्थीको कारणले गर्दाखेरि के अरे यो क्वालिटी बढेको भन्ने चाहिँ एभिडेन्स छैन। EMI नभएकै स्कुलहरुमा पनि त्यो नम्बर बढेको देखिन्छ। तर EMI नभएकै स्कुलहरुमा नि हिजो प्राइभेट स्कुल आएपछि प्राइभेट स्कुलले गरेकै कुराहरु इमिटेट गरेर भए पनि but it is very interesting that EMI is used to counter this private schools. EMI भनेको EMI लाई नै काउन्टर गर्न प्रयोग भइराखेको छ है बिकज त्यो नाम भन्दैपछि विद्यार्थी आउँछन् तर बाहिर भित्र काममा चाहिँ के गर्ने त्यो EMI लाई काउन्टर गरिदिने. So that's very interesting as a researcher. That's interesting phenomenon that I see.
Okay, thank you so much, Prem sir. त्यसपछि मैले एउटा अर्को I'll pick up another queries here by Gary. In terms of EMI in schools, what are parents' attitudes? I think Pramod sir has already explained some ideas. I think Pramod sir, can you explain the things to
Sure.
Gary?
Yeah, the parents' attitude towards EMI.
Yeah, in brief,
Okay.
can you explain it?
Yeah, sure. You know, the parents are really overwhelmed with EMI, right? So, and at the same time, I think they are misled, right? There is a kind of elite narratives. I think Prem sir has already talked about that. There is, you know, elite narratives created by elites. I don't know where I position in the policy layer, maybe at the top. You know that EMI is really needed, and EMI is only the way out of poverty, way out of ethno-linguistic discriminations, right? So these discourses are seen a lot in national media, right? On television, on newspaper, right? So this is a kind of creating the narrative at the local level. So parents really believe that their children will be benefited from EMI. However, as I said, you know, in my PhD research, I explicitly asked my participants, the parents participants, what they really want. Do they, you know, want English, or do they want their children to learn English, you know, language, or they want their children to be educated through English medium? And they were very explicit. They were saying they want their children to speak English. That's it. They do not, it doesn't necessarily mean their children should be taught through English. You know, they can be taught through their mother tongue, they can be taught through Nepali. All they want is English language. In the meantime, I would say more than English, they are worried about their future, right? So we need to address their future, right? The poor parents are really worried about their future, how their children will become competitive, you know, in coming days. How can they survive in social service examinations, right? And that is again driven by the nationalist ideology that they needed to, you know, take examinations in Nepali. They want their children to go abroad, right? This is a very transnational phenomenon going on in Nepal, that the parents want their children to go out of Nepal, you know, so that way they can make, you know, money, they can make their future. And for that, they want their children to learn English language. So, and you know, again, when I asked the same question to policymakers at the, you know, national level, I asked why, you know, why EMI is being created, why this policy is being created, and they told me that it's a parent's demand. And that was really, I found that so funny. That did you research? I asked the question, did you research? Where is the document saying that parents want EMI? Right? We haven't got any survey, right? You know, saying that the parents want EMI. They want English. So focus on ELT, right? Focus on a better ELT. So when their children can have English literacy skills, I don't think parents are going to ask for EMI. I think Prem sir is raising his hand.
Okay, I think this parent attitudes, quick parent attitude
Yes.
thing is very very critical issue. On the one hand, first, as Pramodji said, the parents are misled, and even the researchers. I will highlight this. If you know, I have seen some survey questions that researchers are asking to the parents. They are saying this: do you want your kids to be taught in mother tongue or English medium. This is very misleading, and this kind of question is creating binary binary distinctions and reproducing this binary monolingual ideology. Second, these parents, as Pramodji said, these parents are not actually well informed about how teaching, learning takes place. Basically, the parents of private schools, sorry, public schools. Now, my own research, so I have done a survey with some 400 parents, and I asked these questions. I didn't ask you need mother tongue medium of instruction or English medium of instruction. I asked, do you want your kids to be fluent, to be good in English? Yes, they say yes. Do you want your kids to be good in Nepali? Yes. Do you want your kids to be good in mathematics? Yes. Do you want your kids to be good in social studies? Yes. And do you want your kids to be good in mother tongue? Yes. All yes. So now what I'm saying here is they want their kids to be fluent in good in English. And now what we are saying this now is that now parents want English medium of instruction. And there is a difference between using English as a medium of instruction and English language teaching, ELT. And we all are English language teachers. And not we all, but most of the audience here must be English language teachers. And there must be social studies teachers and science teachers. So that's why language plays a very important role here. And what we are saying is we need very good, strong English language teaching, policy, practice, resources, material, support to the teachers. Not necessarily, compromising learning just because learning of science, learning of social studies, and other. It's not only in public school again, it should be throughout our policies, not only in public schools, even in private schools as well. And I see, and the way we are defining learning, maybe I may not have time, the way we are defining learning is very different from the way we are seeing learning from language multilingual perspective here. We are defining learning as a set of knowledge that is determined, that is measured through examinations at the final, and textbooks knowledge and so on. But what we are seeing here learning is from more cognitive academic perspective, whether they are able to think, whether they are able to analyze, whether they have able to communicate with their people, the community members in society, something like that, not necessarily this pass and fail kind of thing, and that is more secondary. So that's why parents' attitude is the way we are giving reference of parents' attitude is something which is not informed by evidence, and we should be actually very very critical as a researcher to see what does it mean. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'll pick up queries. Gyanendra Yadav ji, उहाँले अघिदेखि नै रिक्वेस्ट गरिरहनु भएको छ. सायद यो कुरा चाहिँ अलिकति प्रेम सर अथवा प्रमोद सरतिरै आउँछ होला. Language policy guided by monolingual nationalism in past, neoliberal ideology at present is seemingly creating divide in society between haves and haves not. Similarly, multilingualism appears just politically correct attempt. And confused here. Without embarrassing its real essence, how can we bring indigenous culture and knowledge in education through language planning and policy? Prem sir, एकदम छोटोमा वाला त्यो ज्ञानेन्द्र सरको क्वेशनलाई रिस्पोन्ड गरिदिनुस् त.
अब यो कुरै तपाईको यही हो हैन, जतिसुकै गरे पनि it's the thing. Why we are debating here is still our mindsets are more monolingual, nationalistic mindset, one language, one nation, and seeing languages as more bounded. अर्को चाहिँ नियोलिबरल. हामी किन अंग्रेजी भनिरहेको छौं भन्दाखेरि इट्स बिकज इट गिव्स हाम्रो जब आउँछ, सेक्युरिटी आउँछ, यति धेरै सोशल इमेजिनेसन छ कि हामी अल्टरनेटिभ पनि देख्न छोड्यौं. I mean, this very reductionist and very narrow sets of ideologies are actually playing role in shaping our policies and practices. About multilingual, I think it's not politically correct for me, Gyanendra ji. It's part of our life. We are simply by these policies, we are simply creating big gap between our community and schools. Big gap between what kids know and what we think they should be knowing. and what they should know. There is a very big gap. I know your policy le गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ यस्तो gap create गरेका छन् कि and multilingualism is part of our life. यहाँ मैले चाहिँ के भनिराखेको छु भने नि as a researcher, I am not saying something new है फेरि. It's not new. यो त हाम्रो part of life मा छ नि त. It's part of life. We speak more than one languages. We are all bilingual in Nepal. म चाहिँ धेरै मान्छे bilingual छौं, multilingual छौं, plurilingual छौं. It's an asset. The thing what we are doing in education is we are simply creating a gap, creating a wall, actually boundary, and we don't let our community practices and community knowledge, epistemologies through language practices in our schools. हाम्रो चाहिँ के छ यो एकदम big gap छ. So यदि हामीले कसरी गर्न सकिन्छ भने for me the teachers are agents and teachers should be educated. Teachers can bring changes actually. Even अब यो हाम्रै मेरो रिसर्च कै दौडानमा यो EMI स्कुलमा के देख्छु भने teachers understand it doesn't work. है जतिसुकै भने पनि टिचरसँग तपाई दुईचोटी तीनचोटी इन्टरभ्यु गर्नुभयो भने they think that it doesn't work and they know that it doesn't work. So that's why they are using their children's home languages. Some Nepali, mostly Nepali छ हाम्रो केसमा, and in some countries even other languages. त्यसैले त मैले चाहिँ के भन्न खोज्छु भने our indigenous identity is multilingual. Our local identity is multilingual, and we need to actually think from that perspective, and then everything will open up. अनि त हामीले गर्ने हो. त्यसैले त म त के भन्छु भने यो माथिबाट हामीले सोच्न थाल्यौं भने राष्ट्रिय एकता अनि हामी चाहिँ विदेश पढ्न जाने सुरु गर्यौं भने चाहिँ यो एजुकेसनको कतै पनि भेट्दैनौं हामी multilingualism. So for me it's very important to engage teachers in the discussion and understand, educate them. हाम्रो चाहिँ समस्या कस्तो छ भने हाम्रो multilingual education भनेको छ, कराएको छ, न भाषा आयोगले गरेको छ, न सरकारले गरेको छ, न युनिभर्सिटीहरुले चाहिँ टिचर एजुकेसन गरेका छन्. अनि यो कुरै मात्रै गरेर त हुँदैन नि त. So we need हाम्रो अंग्रेजी टिचर्स प्रोड्युस गर्ने यति धेरै संस्था छन्, यति धेरै सहयोग छन्, तर multilingual pedagogy मा पढाउने टिचर्सको बारेमा खोइ त. There is no any discussion. So that's why it's structural, it's policy problems. So for me, we need to start from there, empowering teachers and helping them how multilingual pedagogy works. यो भनेको चाहिँ फेरि अंग्रेजीकोलाई चाहिदैन भन्ने हैन. Even English teachers need multilingual knowledge and resources and even support for doing multilingual pedagogy in the classroom. Thank you.
Okay.
सरको मैले हेरिरहेको थिएँ हिजो 1 बजे पनि डाक्टर फ्याक चाहिँ कहीँ उचा मिटिङमा बिजी हुनुहुन्थ्यो. 1 बजेतिर, बिहान 5 बजे पनि बिजी हुनुहुन्थ्यो, 6 बजे पनि बिजी. त्यसैले उहाँहरुको धेरै टाइम लिनु मैले त्यति उचित ठाने, किनकि वास्तवमा उहाँहरुको काम भनेको के हो भने रिसर्चरमा इन्ट्रेस्ट ल्याउने हो, र उहाँले त्यो इन्ट्रेस्ट आज EMI होस् या MI जे पनि होस्, MT होस्, जे भए पनि उहाँले इन्ट्रेस्ट जगाउने काम हो. उहाँले त्यो जगाइदिनु भएको छ एकदमै क्लाइमेक्समा लगेर धेरै नै. मेरो एउटै लास्टमा क्वेशन के छ कि के हामी इंग्लिश एज अ मिडियम अफ इन्स्ट्रक्सन र मदर टङ एज अ मिडियम इन्स्ट्रक्सनलाई यसो अमाल्गमेट गरेर जान सक्छौं कि सक्दैनौं? 2 मिनेट प्रत्येकलाई 1-1.5 मिनेट दिन्छु म टाइम सर.
धन्यवाद दियन सर. यो
एकदमै सरले कन्क्लुडिङ रिमार्क्स सहित है. ओके, सरलाई भन्न मन लागेको एनीथिङ
सान्दर्भिक प्रश्न आएको छ सर. I would like to just address from my perspective. I see that languages are resources, not the problem. यहीँनेर मैले जोड दिन चाहन्छु, languages are resources. Then one language can help the another language, or when languages can be connected to each other. One language helps to bridge the another language acquisition. That's why it has been taken place in the practice level. Practice level मा त्यो भइरहेको छ, दुईटै कम्बिनेसन भएको छ. हामीले रियल क्लासरुममा गएर अब्जर्भेसन, प्र्याक्टिस अब्जर्भेसन गर्दा के देखिएको छ भने टिचर्सहरूले विद्यार्थीको अर्ली ग्रेडमा मदर टङ पनि युज गर्नुभएको छ, नेपाली पनि युज गर्नुभएको छ, इङ्ग्लिस पनि गर्नुभएको छ. इट इज अ काइन्ड अफ कोड मेसिङ, कोड स्विचिङ, अथवा चाहिँ यहाँ चाहिँ टर्मिनोलोजी ट्रान्सल्याङ्ग्वेजिङ, यी कुराहरू भएको छ. यो सम्भव छ, बट हाउ इट क्यान बी प्लजिबल फ्रम द पोलिसी पर्सपेक्टिभ, or how can it be legalized or legitimized. But in practice level the teachers as an agent of policy implementers group they have been practicing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Pramod
you.
sir.
Same question to Pramod sir.
2019 को जुन एजुकेसनल ल्याङ्ग्वेज पोलिसी छ हाम्रो त्यसमा त्यस्तै कुरा गरेको छ EMI-ले पनि मदर टङ बेस्ड मल्टिलिङ्गुअल एजुकेसनलाई पनि कसरी मर्ज गरेर लान सकिन्छ भन्ने टाइपको मोडल त्यहाँ देखाएको छ कि जस्तै कि साइन्स र म्याथमेटिक्सलाई थ्रु इङ्ग्लिस पढाउने भनेर द्याट्स अ मोडल के अरे पोलिसी देखाएको मोडल हो बट आइ एम भेरी क्रिटिकल अबाउट इट आइ एम नट इन्डोर्सिङ दिस पोलिसी देयर इज दिस पोलिसी इज प्रब्लमेटिक तर हामीले इङ्ग्लिस र मदर टङको कुरा गर्दाखेरि म के भन्छु भने अलङ साइड इङ्ग्लिस मल्टिलिङ्गुअल एजुकेसन पोलिसीमा जान सकिन्छ कि अलङ साइड इङ्ग्लिस भनेको इङ्ग्लिसलाई इन्क्लुड गर्ने तर मदर टङ बेस्ड मल्टिलिङ्गुअल एजुकेसनमा जाने होइन जरुरी छैन हामीले साइन्सलाई इङ्ग्लिस थ्रु इङ्ग्लिस पढाउने म्याथलाई इङ्ग्लिस पढाउने द्याट इज अगेन मोर प्रब्लमेटिक किनभने ती दुईटा सब्जेक्ट मोर कग्नेटिभ बेस्ड सब्जेक्ट हो त्यो त झनै इङ्ग्लिसमा पढाउनु हुँदैन भनेपछि इङ्ग्लिस एज अ ल्याङ्ग्वेज सब्जेक्ट कन्टिन्यू हामीले गर्नुपर्छ 1 देखि गर्ने त 4 गर्ने 4 बाट गर्ने 5 बाट गर्ने त्यो छुट्टै डिबेटको कुरा हो तर अलङ साइड इङ्ग्लिस जानु पर्यो इङ्ग्लिसलाई हामीले इन्क्लुड गर्ने तर लोकल ल्याङ्ग्वेज बेस्ड अथवा मदर टङ बेस्ड के अरे मिडियम अफ इन्स्ट्रक्सनबाट नै हामी अगाडि बढ्नुपर्छ in the meantime we need to think about the plurilingual instructions in the classroom I'm not saying we need to include English in the instruction because why do we need English as an instruction, right? When we have English as a compulsory subject, right? But when we are teaching content area subjects, students can bring out multiple languages from the national or local languages. This should be allowed. That's what I think.
Okay. Dr. Feck, same question.
I think
with your conclusion, sir.
it's यो मेरो कन्क्लुजन चाहिँ के हो भने नि यो मलाई चाहिँ
कन्क्लुजन पनि सर अब अलिकति वी आर
मेरो विचारमा I don't think that we should debate medium of instruction by saying that this is English medium of instruction, this is mother tongue medium of instruction. No, we are simply creating binary. यहाँ तपाईहरुको क्वेशन सुन्दा पनि मलाई के लागिरहेछ भने we are creating simply a binary discourse, right? Introducing the binary discourse. We should talk about multilingual education, and we should talk about multilingual or plurilingual, whatever you call it, the medium of instruction, which can create the space for both English and other languages, and as per the need of children, and as per the need of effective learning. त्यसैले मलाई चाहिँ मेरो रिक्वेस्ट चाहिँ के हो भने we should not create boundary between this mother tongue or English. सबैभन्दा बढी चाहिँ हामी इङ्ग्लिस ल्याङ्ग्वेज टिचरहरूले गरिरहेछौँ है we should be very very critical and cautious about it, and English language teaching can go with any other language teaching, and त्यो सब्जेक्टको कुरा त हुँदै भएन. So that's why it's not the question of amalgamation, it's the question of co-construction and co-learning of multiple languages at the same time, and which we need an effective English language teaching and effective multilingual education. That's important.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Dr. Lavadev Awasthi.
एकदमै अब धेरै धन्यवाद छ. अब यो हाम्रो अन्तिम पनि भएको भएर यो अवसर दिनुभयो. यस्तो कोरोनाको अत्यन्त नाजुक अवस्थामा पनि तपाईहरुले एउटा चाहिँ हामी सबैलाई जुटाइदिनु धेरै धन्यवाद छ. एकदम राम्रो किसिमले साथीहरुको अत्यन्त महत्त्वपूर्ण विचार प्राप्त भयो. मैले पनि सिक्ने अवसर पाएँ. अब हाम्रो अत्यन्त बहुतै प्रमिसिङ रिसर्चरहरु पनि जोडिया कारणले उहाँहरुको विचार सुन्ने अवसर मिल्यो. सबै साथीहरुको निकै धेरै क्वेशनहरु पनि छन्. सबै क्वेशनलाई हामीले सम्बोधन गर्ने अवस्था पनि रहेन, तर अब मैले धेरै नोट गरेको छु. पछि हामी छलफलमै जाउँला. अब जुन अहिले प्रश्न आएको छ, प्रश्नमा जाँदाखेरि एउटा कुरा के आयो भने हाम्रो प्राथमिकता केमा हुन्छ भन्ने कुरामा चाहिँ अलिकति छलफल चाहिँ गर्ने छ. किनभने हाम्रो पहिलो प्राथमिकता भनेको हाम्रो विद्यार्थीहरुको बालबालिकाहरुको बुझाइ हो, उनीहरुको सिकाइ हो. कुन माध्यमबाट जाने भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ त्यो दोस्रो हो. त्यसकारणले गर्दा मलाई चाहिँ पहिलो हाम्रो यो तपाईहरु जो अत्यन्त इन्टेलेक्चुअल हिसाबले यति जिम्मेवारी साथ काम गरिराख्नु भएको छ, हाम्रो बुझाइ चाहिँ के हुनुपर्छ जस्तो लाग्छ. मेरो आफ्नो धारणा अथवा भनौं हामी सबैले अहिलेसम्म बुझेको एउटा विगतको अनुभवले पनि के देखाउँछ भने हामीले कहिलेकाहीँ मिसप्लेस्ड एम्फेसिसमा चाहिँ ज्यादा समय खर्च गरिरहेछौँ. हाम्रो एम्फेसिस चाहिँ केमा हुनुपर्ने भने हाम्रो नानीहरुले के गरी बुझ्छन्, उनीहरुको सिकाइ कसरी हुन्छ भन्ने कुरामा ध्यान दिएको छैनौं. खाली हामीले के आवरणलाई ज्यादा चाहिँ समय खेर गइरहेछ हाम्रो. के अंग्रेजीमा जाने कि मातृभाषामा जाने कि अथवा अर्कोमा जाने कि भन्ने हिसाबले पनि यो अलिकति हाम्रो गलत किसिमको समय हाम्रो त्यसरी खर्च भइरहेछ। त्यसकारणले प्राथमिकता भनेको हाम्रो नानीहरूले जुन भाषा बुझ्छन् नि बुझ्नेतिर चाहिँ हाम्रो ध्यान हुनुपर्छ भन्ने मेरो पहिलो चाहिँ यहाँहरुसित अनुरोध हो। दोस्रो कुरो चाहिँ अब हामीले यदि भाषाकै क्रममा जान्ने हो भने पनि अंग्रेजी राम्रो बनाउनमा त हाम्रो कुनै दुविधा छैन। अंग्रेजी सिक्ने भनिरहेका छौं, नेपालीको झन् कुरै भएन। तर हाम्रो भनाइ यहाँनिर कहाँनिर हो भने यदि हाम्रो नानीहरूको उसको पहिलो भाषाको जग भत्किएको छ भने दोस्रो भाषा पनि त्यहाँ चाहिँ राम्रो हुने अवस्था रहँदैन। झन् विदेशी भाषा त हामीले घोक्ने मात्रै जाँचमा राम्रो नम्बर ल्याएको छ भनेर हुने कुरा भन्दा पनि उसको त बुझाइ नै त्यहाँ हुँदैन। त्यसकारणले यदि भाषाको अन्तर सम्बन्ध हामीले बुझ्ने हो भने सबै हामी भाषाकै एउटा सेरोफेरोमा भएको कारणले चाहिँ अहिले हामीले एकदमै जरुरी कुरा के ठान्नुपर्छ भने यदि उसलाई चाहिँ हामीले आफ्नो भाषालाई पनि विकास गर्न दिएनौं, त्यसपछि उसको वरिपरिको परिवेशको दोस्रो भाषा पनि विकसित भएन भने अंग्रेजी भाषा विकास कसरी हुन्छ भन्ने कुरा प्रश्न गर्नु पर्यो। त्यो सम्भवै छैन नि। हामीले एउटा कृत्रिम किसिमको सोच राखेर अंग्रेजीलाई अगाडि सारिरहेका छौं, त्यसले गर्दा हामीलाई क्षति छ। र अन्तिम कुरा मैले एउटा चाहिँ अनुरोध गर्नै पर्ने साथीहरुलाई के भने अहिले हामीले जे चाहिँ छलफल गरिरहेका छौं, अब भाषा आयोगको आफ्नो दृष्टिकोण, भाषा आयोगले गर्ने कुरा भने मूलतः हामीले नेपाल सरकारले सिफारिस गर्ने, नेपाल सरकारको ध्यान आकृष्ट गराउने, त्यो माध्यमबाट अहिले भाषामा देखिएका जे चुनौती छन् ती बारेमा पनि बहस गरेर अगाडि जाने हो। तर एउटा राम्रो कुरो के भएको छ अहिले भने केही राम्रा कुरा पनि आछन्। राम्रो कुरो के आछ भने हामी भाषाप्रति पहिलाको भन्दा धेरै सचेत भएको छौं। सचेत किन भयौं भने हाम्रो पहिलो भाषाको, दोस्रो भाषाको अथवा विदेशी भाषाको सम्बन्ध कसरी स्थापित गर्ने भन्ने बारेमा यहाँहरुले बहस गर्नुभयो। यही एउटा चाहिँ सकारात्मक कुरो हो। अब स्थानीय सरकारलाई पनि हामीले दोष दिने कुरै छैन, उनीहरुको मनसायमा कुनै खराबी छैन, उनीहरुले पनि के राम्रो होस् भन्ने चाहिरहेछन्। तर हाम्रो समस्या चाहिँ मूलतः देखिएको भनेको चाहिँ अलिकति पुरातन किसिमले जो हामी नीति निर्माणमा लागेको छ। अब ल्याङ्ग्वेज पोलिसी भन्ने चाहिँ भाषा बनाउने मान्छेमै हामी समस्या देखिरहेको छ। हामी म जस्ता मान्छेहरु हामीले के सोच्यौं भन्दाखेरि अब त्यहाँनिर चाहिँ पुरानोकै परिवेशबाट चाहिँ हामी सबै कुरा हेरिरहेको कारणले अंग्रेजी बेगर चाहिँ हाम्रो शिक्षा हुँदैन, हामीले विदेश जानुपर्छ, विदेश जाँदा चाहिँ अंग्रेजी चाहिन्छ, नेपालमा पनि अंग्रेजी बोल्यो भने त्यसको भाव बढ्छ भन्ने हिसाबको एउटा चाहिँ विगतको एउटा जो अलिकति औपनिवेशिक चिन्तनबाट हामी ज्यादा त्यसरी पीडित भएको त्यो कुरा अहिले पनि देखिया छ। खास संघीय सोचमा चाहिँ एकदमै समस्या देख्छु मैले। प्रदेशमा पनि त्यो समस्या नहोला, संघको जो मानसिकता छ अहिले पनि अत्यन्त एउटा चाहिँ एकल भाषा, एकल सोचबाट चाहिँ त्यसरी गएको कारणले त्यहाँ चाहिँ जटिलता छ। त्यसमा दोष दिने भन्दा पनि दोष हाम्रै दोष हो। त्यहाँ कुनै किसिमलाई हामीले चाहिँ अब तल्लो अभिभावकलाई अथवा स्थानीय सरकारलाई दोष दिएर त्यसरी जानु हुँदैन। र यसमा एउटा जोडिएको कुरो के हो भने हाम्रो अंग्रेजी मात्रै भयो भने चाहिँ हाम्रो आफ्नो सक्षमता त घट्छ नि। जस्तो अहिले पनि मैले देखिरहेको छु हाम्रो अब कोरोनाकै कारणले भन्नुस् न, पहिलाको अवस्था र अब पोस्ट कोरोना एजुकेसन नै फरक हुन्छ। अब हाम्रो भाषाको दृष्टिकोण फेरिन्छ, हाम्रो सामाजिक तौर तरिका फेरिन्छ, किन हामी त एउटा रूपान्तरणको अवस्थामा छौं। त्यसकारणले विगतमा भएको अंग्रेजीको जो आफ्नो एउटा मोह थियो त्यो मोह चाहिँ अहिलेको कोरोनाले 1-2 महिनामै धेरै फेरिसकेका छ। अहिले अब नानीहरु घर परिवारमा बसिरहेका छन्, आफ्नै भाषामा कुरा गरिरहेका छन्। अब अंग्रेजी बेगर हाम्रो जो चल्दैन भन्ने भ्रम थियो त्यो अहिले कोरोनाले त हामीलाई सिकायो नि त। किन आफ्नै घर परिवार चाहिँदो रहेछ, आफ्नै भाषा चाहिँदो रहेछ, आफ्नै एउटा चाहिँ संस्कारको अन्तर सम्बन्धलाई हामीले जोड्नुपर्छ भन्ने त्यो चेतना पनि आएको छ। त्यसकारणले मलाई लाग्छ यो अवसर अत्यन्त महत्त्वपूर्ण किसिमले यहाँले जुटाइदिनु भयो। मैले सबै साथीहरुलाई नमस्कार गरेर एकदम शुभकामना सहित रामकृष्ण होला, धन्यवाद। मैले अब बिदा लिन्छु, नमस्कार।
धन्यवाद सर, धन्यवाद सर।
धन्यवाद सर। अब एकछिनलाई अब सरहरुको धेरै नै टाइम लिए। मैले भने नि अघि प्रेम सरको बिहानदेखि बेलुकीसम्म, त्यस्तै प्रमोद सरको पनि लगभग तपाईको बिहानको टाइममा हो चाहिँ बेलुकीको ठ्याक्कै उहाँको टाइम राति पर्ने हुँदाखेरि अहिले गरेको र टाइम चाहिँ धेरै नै लिइयो। त्यस्तै गरी ज्ञानु सरको पनि त्यस्तै भएको छ। धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद छ। आई वुड लाइक थ्याङ्क all the participants, panelists, who contributed a lot to the society through this forum, Scholars Association of Nepal.